The sky above Earth had never looked so strange. It shimmered with silver lights moving like rivers of fire. People watched in silence, thinking it was a beautiful show. But soon those lights began to fall. The first ships came through the clouds like burning stars. No one knew who they were or what they wanted. Governments tried to make contact, but all signals went dead. Then the war began. Humanity was not ready. The aliens were powerful, their ships fast and silent, their weapons like lightning. Cities were destroyed in hours. Skies turned red with smoke. Soldiers fought bravely, but every battle was harder than the last. Among those soldiers was a young man named Ethan Cole. He was not a hero yet, just a pilot who believed in protecting his home. He had lost his father years ago in another war, and now he fought with the same courage his father once had. He wanted to save lives, not take them, but sometimes saving meant fighting. Ethan's squad was sent to defend an old military base in the desert. They waited for orders, unsure if anyone still commanded them. When the alien ships appeared, glowing blue under the night sky, Ethan felt fear twist inside him. But he didn't run. He flew straight into the storm. His fighter jet shook as plasma fire lit the sky. He saw his friends fall one by one. His radio screamed with static and cries for help. He tried to reach them, but the enemy was too strong. One massive ship hovered above him, round like a moon, pulsing with strange light. Ethan's instinct screamed to escape, but then he saw something impossible. Inside a broken alien pod falling from that ship, a small figure moved. It looked fragile, glowing faintly like a dying star. Without thinking, Ethan dived. His plane roared through fire and smoke. He locked onto the pod and opened his cockpit shield just long enough to pull it in. The light blinded him, but he didn't let go. The ship crashed minutes later in a field of glass and sand. Everything went black. When Ethan woke up, the world was quiet. His plane was gone. His suit was torn, and next to him lay the pod, open and glowing softly. Inside it was a girl, small, pale, and strange, with silver hair that floated even without wind. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing like two tiny suns. She looked afraid. Ethan raised his hands to show peace. "It's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." The girl didn't speak his language, but she watched him closely. Her skin shimmered like crystal, and small marks glowed along her neck like stars. She looked too young to be a soldier. He realized she was just a child. Then he heard engines in the distance. The aliens were coming back. Ethan grabbed his emergency pack and motioned for her to follow. She hesitated, then reached out her small hand and touched his. Her skin was warm, almost human. They ran across the burning field together, smoke rising behind them. Ethan led her through a canyon toward an old bunker left from past wars. The air smelled of metal and dust. He sealed the door and turned on a faint light. The girl sat quietly, studying everything around her. She touched a cracked photograph on the wall, a picture of a family. Her eyes softened. Ethan wondered if she understood loss. He tried to speak again. "Do you have a name?" She tilted her head. Then she touched her chest and whispered, "Lyra." "Lyra," Ethan repeated. "I'm Ethan." For a moment there was peace. Outside, thunder rolled from distant explosions. Inside, a fragile connection formed between a human soldier and an alien child lost in a war she never started. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He listened to the faint hum of alien machines in the distance. He thought of his own family and of the girl beside him, sleeping curled under his jacket. He didn't know why, but he felt a strange promise forming in his heart. He would protect her, no matter what. When morning came, the desert was silent again. The alien fleet had moved on, but the sky was filled with strange metal dust glowing faintly in the sunlight. Ethan climbed a rock and looked far away at the broken horizon. Somewhere out there, he knew, both humans and aliens were still fighting. He didn't yet know that the girl he had saved was no ordinary alien. She was a princess, the daughter of the alien queen, the very leader humanity feared the most. And the moment he chose to save her, the fate of two worlds had begun to change. Ethan turned back to the bunker and saw Lyra watching him, her silver eyes full of quiet trust. In that silence, something powerful sparked between them, hope, and hope even in war can change everything. The morning sun was harsh over the desert. Dust shimmered in the light and broken ships lay scattered across the horizon. Ethan packed his small bag, checking what little he had left. some water, a small energy cell, and a broken radio. The alien girl, Lyra, stood beside him quietly, holding a piece of his flight jacket like it was something precious. They had to move. The bunker was safe for now, but the sky above them buzzed faintly with distant drones. He didn't know if they were human or alien. Either way, if someone found Lyra, she would not be safe. Ethan pointed to the far mountains. "We'll go there. Maybe we can find help." Lyra looked at him with confusion, but then nodded. She didn't understand his words, yet she trusted his eyes. They walked across the empty wasteland for hours. The wind howled softly, carrying the smell of burned metal. Lyra's steps were light. She didn't seem to tire like a normal child. Sometimes her skin would glow faintly when the sun hit her, as if she carried light inside her. Ethan couldn't stop wondering who she really was. As they moved, Ethan kept looking at the sky. Strange shapes floated there, black, moving fast, leaving trails of blue smoke. He knew the war was not over. Somewhere both sides were still fighting. By noon, they found the remains of an old research station buried in the sand. It looked empty. Ethan searched for supplies while Lyra wandered through the rooms, touching everything with curiosity. She stopped near a dusty control screen, and when her fingers brushed the surface, the dead machine flickered to life. Ethan stared. "How did you—" Lyra didn't answer. She just looked at him and smiled a little. The screen showed a map of the area glowing weakly. Ethan leaned closer and saw a small signal blinking near the mountains. "Maybe that's a base," he said. "If we can reach it, we can send a message." But then the ground shook. The sand outside began to move, forming waves like water. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her behind a metal wall. Through the broken window, he saw a shadow moving over the dunes, a scout ship, smooth and black, humming with alien energy. He held his breath. Lyra's eyes widened. She whispered something in her language, her voice trembling. Ethan put a finger to his lips. "Shh, quiet." The ship hovered above them for several seconds. Blue light scanned the ground. The beam passed across the station walls, and for a second, Ethan thought it would find them. But then it turned and moved away, disappearing behind the hills. Ethan sighed in relief and sank to the floor. Lyra touched his shoulder gently, her small hand warm. He looked at her and smiled faintly. That was close. She didn't understand the words, but she smiled back anyway. That night, they stayed hidden inside the station. Ethan fixed a small light from the broken control panel. Lyra sat beside him, humming softly in her strange voice. The tune was beautiful, like wind moving through stars. Ethan closed his eyes and listened. For the first time in days, he felt calm. He wanted to ask her who she was, where she came from, why her people had attacked Earth, but he couldn't bring himself to. She was just a child, lost and scared. The war wasn't her fault. Later, when he dozed off, he woke to a soft glow beside him. Lyra was sitting near the wall, her eyes closed, her hands raised slightly. Small lights floated around her fingers, tiny orbs like fireflies. Ethan watched silently. She wasn't just an alien. She was something rare, something powerful. The lights faded as she noticed him watching. She lowered her hands and looked embarrassed. Ethan smiled gently. "It's okay," he said softly. "It's beautiful." In the morning, they left the station and moved toward the mountains. The path grew harder, the sand turning into sharp black rocks. The air became cold. Lyra stumbled once and Ethan helped her up. He noticed she was shivering. Without thinking, he took off his jacket and wrapped it around her small shoulders. She looked at him, surprised. "Thank you," she said in broken English. Ethan froze. You understand me?" She nodded slowly, choosing her words carefully. "Little and understand, learn." He smiled in disbelief. "You're learning fast." She smiled too, a soft, shy smile that made her eyes glow brighter. By the time they reached the edge of the mountains, night had fallen again. The stars above were strange, some burned red, others green, as if the sky itself had changed from the war. Ethan built a small fire inside a cave. Lyra sat close, watching the flames dance. She pointed at the stars and whispered, "Home." Ethan looked up too. "You're home?" She nodded. "Far, far away. Mother. There." Ethan's heart sank. "Your mother must be worried." Lyra looked down and whispered, "She think I die." He didn't know what to say. He just placed a hand on her shoulder gently. "We'll find a way," he said. "You'll see her again." Lyra looked at him with trust, eyes shining in the firelight. In that quiet cave, a soldier and an alien princess sat together, two lost souls from two worlds bound by something stronger than fear. Outside, high above the clouds, a massive alien warship drifted slowly. Inside it, a figure in a golden crown stood before a holographic map, her eyes full of sorrow. The Queen of Lyra's people whispered to herself, "My child, where are you?" And far below, under the cold stars, the child she searched for was finally safe. For now. The next morning came cold and gray. Thin clouds covered the mountains like white smoke. Ethan woke first. The small fire had turned to ashes and the air smelled of wet stone. Lyra was still sleeping beside him, her hair glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked peaceful, almost human. Ethan packed their things quietly. They needed to move. The blinking signal on his map showed they were close to an old human base, maybe just 10 miles away. It was their only chance for food, water, and safety. He touched Lyra's shoulder. "Hey, time to go." She opened her eyes slowly and smiled, sleepy but trusting. They stepped out of the cave together and began to climb. The ground was rough and sharp, but Lyra walked easily, her small feet barely leaving marks on the rock. Ethan noticed she seemed stronger today. Her glowing marks were brighter too. "Are you feeling better?"
he asked, not sure she'd understand.
Lyra nodded. "Yes, better," he smiled. "Good. We'll find help soon." Hours passed as they climbed higher. From the top of a ridge, Ethan could see the remains of a human outpost, a cluster of metal buildings half buried in the sand. Smoke rose faintly from one of them. Someone was there. Before he could plan what to do, a sudden noise echoed across the rocks. A voice shouted, "Hands up! Don't move!" Ethan froze. Soldiers stepped out from behind the rocks, 3 of them wearing dusty combat armor with Earth symbols on their shoulders. They had rifles aimed at him. One soldier walked closer, his face hidden behind a helmet. "Identify yourself." Ethan raised his hand slowly. "Lieutenant Ethan Cole, Air Force 17th Squadron. Crashed during the battle 3 days ago." The soldier lowered his weapon slightly. "Cole, you're supposed to be dead. Command listed your jet as destroyed." "Yeah," Ethan said, breathing hard. "I almost was." Then one of the soldiers noticed Lyra standing behind him. "What the hell is that?" he said sharply, aiming his rifle at her. Lyra stepped back, frightened. Ethan moved in front of her. "She's with me." "She's one of them," the soldier said. "Look at her. You've brought an alien here? She's just a child." Ethan shouted. "She's not a threat." The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. Their leader spoke quietly. "Orders are clear. All alien life forms are to be captured or neutralized." Ethan shook his head. "No, not this one. She's different." Lyra clung to his arm, trembling. Her glowing eyes looked up at him, full of fear. Ethan could feel her shaking. The leader sighed. "You've been out here too long, Cole. Maybe you don't see things clearly anymore. Step aside." Ethan's pulse raced. "If you touch her, you'll have to go through me." The soldiers hesitated. They didn't expect this. For a moment, no one moved. Then one of them raised his weapon. Before he could fire, the ground trembled. A sharp blue light shot from the sky, striking the rocks beside them. Everyone dropped to the ground. Another beam followed, then another. Alien drones swarmed above the ridge, scanning the area. "Take cover," Ethan shouted. The soldiers scattered. One of them fired into the air, but it was useless. The drones were too fast. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her behind a boulder. "Stay down." The drones fired again, cutting through metal and stone. The soldiers fought back, but one by one their weapons failed. The leader screamed, "We're outgunned!" "Fall back." Ethan looked at Lyra. "We have to move now." She nodded, eyes glowing brighter. Suddenly she raised her hands. A wave of light burst from her palms, pure energy that spread like a shield around them. The drone's weapons hit the barrier and vanished into sparks. Ethan stared in disbelief. Lyra's voice trembled. "Run," he didn't question her. He grabbed her arm and they ran down the rocky path. Behind them, explosions lit the sky. The soldiers tried to follow, but the path collapsed under falling debris. They didn't stop until they reached the valley below. Both fell to the ground, gasping for air. The sky above burned with red light from the battle still raging on the ridge. Ethan looked at her, shocked. What did you just do?" Lyra looked down at her hands, still glowing faintly. "Power and from my mother. I protect," he stared, realizing what she truly was. "You're not just anyone, are you?" Lyra shook her head slowly. Princess of Nurea. Ethan's mind spun. The Nurians, the enemy race. He had saved their princess. No wonder the alien drones had been searching for her. He stood unsure what to do next. If humans find out who you are, they'll never let you live. Lyra looked up, tears in her glowing eyes. Humans hate my people? Ethan hesitated. Some do, but not all. Some just don't understand. She touched his hand gently. You understand? He nodded. I'm trying to. They sat in silence as the wind carried the sound of distant battle away. Ethan stared at the horizon, knowing the world would never be the same. He had defied his own kind to save her, and now both sides would see them as traitors, but he didn't care. When he looked at Lyra, he saw not an alien, but a child who wanted peace. Far above them, the alien queen stood in her command ship, watching the scans. A faint smile touched her lips as she whispered, "She lives." The war was far from over, but for the first time, hope flickered across the stars. The valley stretched far under the pale light of dawn. Wind howled between the rocks, carrying the smell of smoke and metal. Ethan and Lyra rested behind a fallen ridge hidden beneath the shadows. Both were covered in dust and exhaustion. Ethan checked the small scanner on his wrist. Red dots flickered on the display. Drones were still searching the area. They're tracking us, he whispered. We can't stay here, Lyra nodded. Her silver eyes glowed faintly as she looked up at the sky. They'd find me. My people think you take me, Ethan frowned. They think I kidnapped you? She nodded sadly. Yes, they not know. You saved me. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. So both sides think I'm the enemy now. Lyra tilted her head. Enemy? Someone everyone wants to kill, Ethan said with a tired smile. Lyra looked confused for a moment, then softly said, I not want kill. He smiled faintly. That makes one of us. They began moving again, staying low along the valley floor. The ground was rough, filled with twisted metal from past battles. Sometimes they passed burned machines and broken helmets, reminders of how many had already died. Hours passed before they reached a small canyon with a stream of clear water. Ethan knelt down and splashed his face. The coolness helped calm him. Lyra copied him, laughing quietly when the water sparkled around her glowing hands. For a brief moment, it felt like peace, but peace never lasted long in war. A sudden sound broke the silence and the deep hum of engines. Ethan looked up sharply. A small human patrol craft flew overhead, scanning the valley. He pulled Lyra under the rocks. Don't move, he whispered. The ship hovered for a moment, then dropped something. A metallic sphere landed near them and began to beep. Ethan's eyes widened. Tracker. He grabbed it, threw it into the stream, and pulled Lyra's hand. Run! The tracker exploded behind them, sending dust and heat through the canyon. They ran across the stones, the air thick with smoke. The patrol craft turned, chasing them with bright lights cutting through the fog. Lyra stumbled, and Ethan lifted her in his arms. Hold on! He ran until his lungs burned. The path ahead split into two tunnels. Without thinking, he took the darker one. The ship's lights vanished behind them. Inside the tunnel, it was cold and silent. The air smelled of old metal and earth. Faint blue symbols glowed along the walls, alien marks. Lyra touched them gently. Nurian writing, she whispered. What does it say? Ethan asked, catching his breath. She studied the symbols. Old place refuge. Long time ago. They followed the glowing path deeper inside. At the end of the tunnel, they found a large chamber filled with strange crystal structures. The light from them reflected softly, bathing the room in silver-blue glow. Ethan looked around in awe. What is this place? Lyra walked forward slowly. Sanctuary. My people build before war. Ethan noticed a round pedestal in the center. It looked like a communication device. Can it still work? Lyra closed her eyes and placed her hands on it. The crystals around them pulsed with light. A holographic image flickered in the air. A woman with silver hair and golden eyes. Her presence was powerful and calm. Lyra gasped softly. Mother. Ethan stepped back, realizing who it was. The alien queen herself. The hologram's voice echoed softly. My child, if you see this message, I am still searching for you. The war has taken too much. I will not rest until you are safe. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She touched the light as if she could feel her mother's face. Mother, I'm alive. Ethan's throat tightened. He watched silently, not wanting to interrupt. Then the light flickered again, changing to a different tone. The Queen's voice grew firm. If humans find this place, destroy it. They cannot use our power. And to the one who shelters my daughter, if you are human, know this. She carries the heart of our world. Protect her, and our war may end differently. The message faded. The room went silent. Ethan stood frozen. She spoke to humans. Lyra looked at him with wet eyes. She believe? Could human exist? Ethan smiled weakly. Then she believes in more than most of us do. Suddenly the tunnel behind them echoed with footsteps. Heavy boots and metal clinks. Voices followed. Human soldiers, they went this way, one shouted. Ethan's heart raced. They found us. He looked around, searching for another exit. Lyra pointed to a narrow path behind the crystals. There! They ran through it just as the soldiers entered the main chamber. Ethan could hear them shouting orders, scanning the area. He and Lyra crawled through a narrow gap in the rock until they reached another exit, leading into open air. Outside, night had fallen. The stars above shimmered cold and endless. Ethan helped Lyra climb out, both covered in dust. He looked back at the tunnel glowing faintly behind them. They'll destroy that place, he said quietly. Lyra nodded sadly. But Mother, know now. I live. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we keep going. Until we find her. She looked at him with hope in her silver eyes. Together? Together, Ethan said. They began walking again under the endless starlit sky. Behind them, the mountain shook as explosions echoed deep underground. The sanctuary of peace was gone, but something far stronger had begun. A bond between a human soldier and an alien princess that might one day end a war. Far above, the Queen stood in her command ship, looking at a signal glowing faintly on her screen. She whispered, she lives, and she is not alone. The wind blew cold across the mountains. The moonlight turned the sand into silver. Ethan and Lyra walked slowly through the darkness, tired and hungry. They had been moving all night, staying off the open paths where drones still searched. Ethan stopped to rest near an old cargo truck half buried in dust. We'll stop here for a bit, he said softly. Lyra nodded, sitting on a rock. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the stars. She looked weaker than before. Ethan took out his canteen and handed it to her. Drink, you need it more than me. She smiled gently and took a sip. You always care, she said in broken English. Ethan chuckled. Someone has to. For a while neither spoke. The world around them was silent except for the sound of the wind. Ethan stared at the sky, filled with strange lights and moving shadows. He wondered if humanity would ever see peace again. Finally, Lyra spoke. Ethan, you ask why war start? He looked at her. Yes, why did your people attack us? Lyra lowered her head. Long time ago, Nuria world dying. Our sun grow cold, my mother. Send message to Earth, ask help. But message lost. Humans build weapon, same signal. My people think it answer. They come to ask help, but humans shoot first. Ethan frowned. You mean it was a mistake? She nodded slowly. Yes, fear make war. Both side think other want kill. Ethan felt a heavy ache in his chest. All this death, all this pain, because of fear. Lyra looked up at him with sad eyes. Now too late, many hate. Hard to stop. Ethan shook his head. Nothing's too late. If we can reach your mother, maybe we can end it. She touched his hand gently. You really believe? He smiled faintly. I have to. Before he could say more, a sharp sound broke the quiet. The crunch of metal behind them. Ethan stood instantly, pulling Lyra behind the truck. He raised his weapon, scanning the shadows. A figure appeared through the dust. A man in a damaged human uniform limped forward, hands raised. His helmet was cracked and his face was tired but familiar. Ethan? The man said weakly. Ethan blinked. Captain Harris? The older man nodded, coughing. I can't believe it's you. We thought you were dead. Ethan lowered his gun a little. You're from my base. How did you survive? Barely, Harris said. After the first invasion wave, we regrouped in the south. Command sent me to scout for survivors. He looked past Ethan and saw Lyra. His expression changed instantly. What is that? She's not a threat, Ethan said quickly. She's with me. Harris's eyes narrowed. That's an alien child. She's the reason I'm alive, Ethan replied firmly. Harris stepped closer. You don't understand. Command has orders to destroy anything related to them. If they find out you're protecting her, they'll call you a traitor. Ethan stared back. Then I'll be a traitor. Harris sighed heavily. You don't know what you're doing. If they catch you, they'll execute you both. Give her to me. I'll turn her in peacefully. Lyra took a step back, fear flashing in her eyes. Ethan moved in front of her. No, I won't let you. Ethan, listen to reason, Harris said. This is bigger than you. Ethan shook his head. No, it's bigger than all of us. And if we keep killing out of fear, there won't be anything left to fight for. For a moment, Harris said nothing. The wind howled between them. Then quietly he lowered his weapon. You always were stubborn, he said. Ethan relaxed slightly. So you'll help us? Harris looked at Lyra again. Where are you going? North, Ethan said. There's a transmission base near the mountains. If we can reach it, we might contact her people, maybe even stop this war. Harris thought for a moment. That base is crawling with patrols. You'll never make it alone, Ethan nodded. Then come with us. Harris sighed, looking torn. Finally, he said, all right. But if command finds me, I was never here. Ethan smiled faintly. Understood. They moved together through the night, 3 shadows crossing the wasteland. Harris led the way, knowing the terrain well. Lyra followed close to Ethan, holding onto his sleeve whenever she felt afraid. When dawn came, they reached a high ridge overlooking the plains. Far below, the ruins of a communication station glowed with faint blue light. Half human, half alien. That's it, Harris said. The hybrid base. Built from tech we took from their ships. Ethan looked at it carefully. If we can access that tower, maybe we can reach the Queen. Harris nodded. Maybe, but you'd better be ready. Both sides guard that place. Lyra watched the horizon silently. Many die. If fight again. Ethan looked at her, his face calm but determined. Then we'll make sure they don't have to. They sat in silence for a moment, the wind blowing through the cracked metal. Ethan knew the road ahead would be dangerous, but deep inside he also knew something had changed. The truth of the war had given him a new purpose, not just to survive, but to fix what fear had broken. As the sun rose behind them, the light caught Lyra's silver hair, turning it into a crown of light. Ethan smiled softly. Your mother will see you again, he said. Lyra smiled back. And she will see you. Hero. Ethan laughed quietly. Let's just get there first. They gathered their gear and began climbing down the ridge. Far away, the sound of thunder echoed, not from the sky but from engines rising. The war was still raging, but for the first time, hope was walking right through it. The sun rose slowly behind the mountains as Ethan, Lyra, and Captain Harris stood on the ridge, staring at the hybrid communication base below. The base looked like a broken fortress, half human steel, half alien crystal. Strange blue energy pulsed through its towers, reaching into the sky like frozen lightning. This is it, Harris said. The transmission core is at the center. If we can reach it, we can send your signal. Ethan studied the layout through his binoculars. Guards at every gate, drones overhead. We'll have to move carefully. Lyra looked uneasy. I feel pain, she whispered. So many die here. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll be careful. They waited until dusk before moving. Shadows stretched across the ruins and the air grew cold. Ethan and Harris wore stolen patrol armor to blend in, while Lyra covered her glowing skin under a dark cloak. Together they slipped through the wrecked fence and into the base. Inside, the air buzzed with tension. Human soldiers moved in groups, their weapons ready. But something felt wrong. They weren't just guarding the base. They were guarding something inside it. They reached an old hallway filled with flickering lights. Ethan whispered, We go straight to the core, send the message, and get out. Harris nodded, though his eyes looked distant, almost nervous. Lyra walked close to Ethan, holding his arm. She whispered, I not like this place. Feel dark, he nodded. We'll be quick. As they turned a corner, 2 soldiers approached. Ethan's heart raced. Harris stepped forward and saluted. Recon Squad, Sector 7, he said quickly. The soldiers glanced at him, nodded, and passed without question. Ethan exhaled in relief. They reached the central chamber, a massive room filled with alien crystals and human cables twisting together. In the center stood the transmission core, glowing bright blue. Lyra's eyes widened. I can connect. Speak to my mother, Ethan smiled. Then do it. She stepped forward and placed her hands on the crystal. The air shimmered as energy surged through the chamber. The light reflected across her face, soft and radiant. For a moment, Ethan could almost see her mother's presence forming, a faint holographic glow of the alien queen. Then a sudden voice shouted, "Drop your weapons!" Ethan turned. Dozens of soldiers surrounded them. At the front stood a man in black armor with sharp eyes and a cold smile. General Roth, one of the top human commanders. Ethan's heart sank. "How did you—" Roth smirked. "You think we wouldn't notice a stolen patrol ship entering a restricted zone?" He looked at Harris. "Well done, Captain." "You led them right to us," Ethan froze. "What?" Harris looked away, guilt in his eyes. "I had no choice, Ethan. Command offered a deal. They promised to end this war if we deliver her." Lyra stepped back, her glowing eyes filled with shock. "You betray us?" Harris's voice cracked. "I just wanted peace." "Peace?" Ethan shouted. "By handing over a child?" Roth raised his weapon. "That child is the key to alien power. Her DNA can control their machines. With her we can win." Ethan's grip tightened on his rifle. "Winning isn't peace," Roth smiled coldly. "Maybe not for them, but for us it will be." Before he could give another order, Lyra's glow brightened. The crystals around her pulsed faster, reacting to her fear. The lights turned white-hot and the air trembled. Roth shouted, "Stop her!" Soldiers fired. The bullet stopped mid-air, melting before reaching her. Lyra raised her hands and a wave of blue light burst from the core, knocking everyone to the ground. Ethan shielded his face as energy swept through the room. Machines exploded, alarms screamed, and the floor shook. Harris crawled toward Ethan. "Go! Take her and run!" Ethan looked at him, torn between anger and pity. Harris's eyes were full of regret. "I was wrong," he whispered. "Save her before they destroy everything." Ethan nodded, pulling Lyra away from the core. The ceiling cracked above them. Flames and sparks filled the air. "Ethan!" Lyra cried, clutching his arm. "Can't stop it." He looked back at the glowing core. "Then we run." They sprinted through the collapsing hallways. Behind them, the entire base began to tear apart, metal and crystal breaking apart like glass. Outside, explosions lit the night sky. Ethan and Lyra stumbled through the debris, coughing through the smoke. When they finally reached a safe distance, they turned and watched as the base imploded in a blinding flash of blue light. Ethan dropped to his knees, breathing hard. "It's gone." Lyra knelt beside him, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "So many die again." He looked at her gently. "You saved us, and you stopped them from using you as a weapon." She nodded weakly. "But my mother—" "She not hear me?" Ethan looked toward the stars. "Then we'll find another way." In the distance, the night sky shimmered as something massive moved through the clouds. A Nurian battleship, dark and silent. Ethan stood slowly. "She'll come for you, Lyra. Your mother's looking." Lyra looked up, her voice soft but full of hope. "Then we go to her," Ethan nodded. "Together." Far above, in the alien queen's ship, a signal flickered, faint but alive. She turned to her generals and whispered, "She is close. Prepare for contact." The war was shifting. The hunter had become the protector, and the child of light was no longer lost. But for peace to come, both sides would soon have to face the truth. The desert was silent again. The ruins of the hybrid base still burned behind them, smoke rising into the red sky. Ethan and Lyra walked away slowly, their shadows long and thin in the dying light. Both were exhausted, their faces covered in dust. Lyra's small hand trembled in Ethan's. She looked back once at the smoke and whispered, "Too many dead." Ethan nodded quietly. Yeah, too many. They had survived again, but the world felt heavier. Harris's betrayal still echoed in Ethan's mind. Yet even at the end, Harris had tried to make it right. That memory hurt more than anger ever could. As the night came, Ethan and Lyra found shelter under the remains of an old shuttle. Inside it was cold and quiet. The wind outside howled softly, carrying the sound of distant thunder. Ethan lit a small fire with the last of his fuel cells. Lyra sat close to the light, her eyes glowing faintly. "You think my mother know I alive?" she asked softly. Ethan stared into the fire. "I think she felt it." "A mother always knows." Lyra smiled weakly. "She's strong." "Like you." Ethan chuckled quietly. "I'm not that strong." She tilted her head. "You fight for me. You save me. That's strong." He looked at her and smiled sadly. "Maybe, but I just do what's right." She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time since the war began, Ethan allowed himself to rest. When morning came, the horizon shimmered with faint blue lights. Strange circular clouds hovered far above, moving slowly across the sky. Lyra stood outside the shuttle, pointing upward. "Mother's fleet," she whispered. Ethan followed her gaze. Massive alien ships floated among the clouds, their metallic bodies reflecting sunlight like mirrors. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Looks like they're coming closer," Ethan said. "We need a way to reach them before the army does." He pulled out the small data chip he had taken from the base before it exploded. "This has part of their signal code. Maybe we can use it to contact your mother directly." Lyra's eyes brightened. "You clever," he smiled. "Sometimes." They walked toward the mountains again, heading for an old launch site rumored to still have a working ship. The ground was cracked and silent, filled with the ghosts of the past war. Hours later, they reached the edge of a canyon. Below them lay a massive hangar door half buried in sand. Ethan brushed the dust off a control panel and tried to power it up. It flickered weakly, showing alien script mixed with human code. Lyra stepped forward, touching the symbols with her glowing fingers. The metal door rumbled and began to open slowly, revealing a hidden chamber inside. Ethan grinned. "Nice work." Inside they found a small transport craft, damaged but intact. Its engines hummed faintly as Lyra approached it. She closed her eyes and the symbols on the ship's hull glowed brighter. "This ship, Nurian," she said softly. "Old, but I can make it fly." Ethan looked surprised. "You can pilot it?" She nodded. "Mother taught me before war." "Then let's see if you remember." They climbed inside. The interior was filled with smooth glass panels and soft blue lights. Ethan sat beside her as she touched the control sphere. The ship hummed louder, lifting slightly off the ground. Ethan smiled. "You're amazing." Lyra blushed faintly. "We fly now?" He nodded. "Straight to your mother." The ship rose into the air, pushing through clouds and dust. Below, the desert looked endless and empty. As they reached the upper atmosphere, Ethan looked back down at Earth, scarred and burning in places. It no longer looked like home. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "Ethan, what happened if humans attack my mother?" He didn't answer right away. "Then we stop them somehow." She looked at him sadly. "You can't fight all." He smiled softly. "No, but I can protect one." Lyra's eyes shimmered with emotion. "You protect me." "I protect you." He nodded. "Deal." Suddenly, alarms blared through the cockpit. Red lights flashed. The ship shook violently. Ethan looked at the radar. Human missiles were closing in. "They found us," he shouted. "Hold on!" Lyra gripped the controls tightly. The ship spun, dodging one missile, then another. Blue plasma streaked across the sky. A human fighter squadron appeared behind them. Ethan grabbed the secondary controls. "They're not giving up." Lyra's hands glowed brighter as she focused. The ship's engines roared, and a burst of light shot them forward. The stars blurred. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the blackness of space opened before them, vast and endless. Ahead, the alien queen's fleet floated like a city of light among the stars. Lyra gasped softly. "Home," Ethan stared in awe. "It's beautiful." But the human fighters were still coming. The nearest alien ship activated its defense grid, firing beams of energy at the incoming missiles. The sky exploded with color. Lyra's voice trembled. "Mother's guards think we enemy." Ethan grabbed her shoulder. "Send her the code, now!" She closed her eyes and her hands glowed with bright white light. The ship's core pulsed as a signal shot toward the largest vessel. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a soft voice echoed through the speakers. Calm, powerful, full of warmth. "Lyra, my child?" Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Mother, it's me!" Ethan smiled, relief washing over him. But the moment was cut short as the human ships locked on again. The Queen's voice grew louder. "Hold your course. I am coming." Through the void, a massive golden ship moved forward, opening its wings like an angel made of light. The war was about to reach its final moment, not through destruction, but through reunion. Lyra looked at Ethan, her voice soft. "You bring me home," he smiled. "Not yet, but we're close." And as the stars burned brighter around them, the human hero and the alien princess flew straight into the heart of destiny. The stars glowed like rivers of light as the small Nurian ship sped toward the Queen's fleet. The golden flagship waited in the distance, its surface shining like a sunrise across space. Ethan could feel the vibrations through the cockpit as the human missiles closed in behind them. "Almost there," he shouted. "Hold it steady." Lyra's hands glowed bright white as she guided the ship. Her voice shook.
They keep shooting.
"Why humans do this?" Ethan gritted his teeth. "They're afraid. They don't know what's happening." A missile exploded near the wing, throwing the ship sideways. Sparks flew across the dashboard. The alarm screamed. Ethan fought the controls while Lyra steadied the energy core. Through the static came a calm, powerful voice. The Queen's voice. "Lyra, my child, I see you. You are safe now. Stay strong." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Mother, I coming." The Queen's fleet moved to protect them. Silver ships turned, forming a glowing barrier between the humans and the small transport. Energy shields flared as human fighters opened fire, but the Queen's ships did not attack back. They defended. Ethan watched in awe. "They're protecting us but not firing. She doesn't want war." The Queen's voice echoed again. "Human pilot, your courage is known. You saved what even I could not protect. You have my gratitude." Ethan blinked in surprise. "You're welcome, Your Majesty, but we need to stop this before everyone dies." "Agreed," the Queen replied. "Bring my daughter aboard." Lyra's glow brightened as she smiled. "We go home." The ship entered the Queen's hangar, surrounded by soft blue light. As the engines powered down, the doors opened. Warm air filled the chamber and strange flowers grew in glass tubes along the walls. Ethan helped Lyra step out. She looked around with wide eyes, whispering, "It smells like home." At the end of the long hall, the Queen appeared. She was tall and radiant, her silver hair flowing like starlight, her golden eyes full of tears. Without a word, she ran forward and fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around her daughter. Lyra cried softly, pressing her small hands against her mother's chest. "Mom, I'm home." The Queen's voice trembled. "I thought I lost you forever." Ethan stood quietly a few steps away, feeling the weight of the moment. He had fought, bled, and risked everything for this, and now it was real. The Queen looked up at him. "You brought her back. You risked your life for one who was not your own." "Why?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Because she needed help. Because she was just a child caught in a war she didn't start. And because maybe saving her means saving us all." The Queen studied him for a long time. Then she smiled, a soft, sad smile. "You speak with a heart my people once believed humans did not have." Before anyone could say more, alarms began to sound. A soldier ran into the chamber and bowed. "Your Majesty, the human fleet approaches. They demand surrender or they will fire." Ethan's heart sank. "No, they don't understand." The Queen turned to him. "Then help them understand. Speak for us both." She led him to the control deck, a vast room of light and crystal. Outside the windows, hundreds of human ships hovered in attack formation. Red targeting beams locked onto the Queen's vessel. Ethan stood before the communication panel. His reflection looked tired, scarred, but determined. "This is Lieutenant Ethan Cole of Earth's Air Force," he said firmly into the mic. "Stand down. The alien fleet isn't attacking. They just want their princess back. This war started because of a mistake, and if we fire now, we'll destroy any chance at peace." There was silence. Then a rough voice answered. "General Roth." "Cole, you're a traitor. You think anyone will believe you after what you've done?" Ethan swallowed hard. "Then don't believe me. Believe what you see. Their guns aren't aimed at you. They're not firing. Look at the readings." The line went quiet again. For a moment, only static filled the air. Then another voice, softer, uncertain, spoke. "He's right, sir. They're holding position." Roth hesitated. "If they attack, it's on you, Cole." Ethan glanced at the Queen. She nodded. Together, they deactivated the alien shields. The glowing barriers faded, leaving the fleet open, vulnerable. Ethan spoke again. "Now, General, look." Both fleets floated in silence, facing each other across the void. No one fired. No one moved. Finally, Roth's voice came back, quieter. Maybe it's time to stop." Ethan smiled faintly. "It's time to start something new." The Queen stepped forward and sent a soft beam of golden light toward the human flagship, a symbol of peace. The two fleets slowly lowered their weapons. The war that had burned for years ended not with another battle, but with a single act of trust. Hours later, Ethan stood beside Lyra and the Queen in the Great Hall. The Queen turned to him. Human soldier, you changed the course of 2 worlds. What will you do now? Ethan looked out the window at the stars. Go home. Tell them what I saw, that peace isn't weakness. The Queen placed her hand on his chest gently. Then you will always be welcome among my people. Lyra hugged him tightly. You my hero, she said softly. My friend forever. Ethan smiled and hugged her back. And you're the bravest princess I've ever met. As he stepped onto the return shuttle, Lyra stood beside her mother, waving. The Queen whispered to her, Remember his courage, my child. Because of him, our worlds live. The ship launched into the stars, heading back toward Earth. Ethan looked once more at the alien fleet shining like a crown of light. He whispered to himself, She's home, and so am I. And in that quiet moment between 2 worlds that had once been enemies, hope was born again.